The paper we're breaking down today is The Molecular Structure of Thought, Mapping the Topology of Long Chain of Thought Reasoning. And this work tackles one of the most persistent headaches in LLM development.
Absolutely.
Why do these incredibly powerful models just completely struggle to learn robust long chain of thought, or long kite, from standard fine-tuning?
Yeah, it's the cold start problem, but at a massive scale. And the researchers here, this is a collaboration with ByteDance Seed, Harbin Institute of Technology, and others. They propose this really radical conceptual shift.
Right.
They're arguing that effective long kite isn't a sequence. It's a stable, highly organized, molecular-like structure. And this structure is defined by three very specific types of interaction bonds between the reasoning steps.
I just love this analogy. It makes something so abstract feel concrete.
Yeah.
You have deep reasoning, which is like a covalent bond. It's the strong logical backbone. Then you have self-reflection, which acts more like a hydrogen bond, creating this long-range stability, forcing the whole chain to fold correctly.
And the third one, self-exploration, which is like those weaker van der Waals forces, you know? They support these little abductive jumps linking distant ideas, and they prove this is what the models are actually learning.
Not just copying keywords.
Exactly. And to leverage this, they built a framework called Mole-Syn. It synthesizes these optimal structures and delivers these huge performance boosts.
Okay, so that structural insight is really the core of it. But let's start with that central mystery, the cold start problem itself. We all know LLMs are great at short SUT, a few steps of math, no problem.
Right.
Why does it all fall apart when you stretch that out to, say, 100 steps?
It's all about generalizing behavior over these really long horizons. So in their preliminary work, they tested the three most common ways we try to teach LLMs complex reasoning. First, they confirmed the one method that actually works.
Okay.
And that's distillation from a strong reasoning model, like a DeepSeek R1 or QWQ. If you do that, the student model successfully learns and retains that internal long coteau structure.
So we know it's possible to transfer the skill. The real puzzle is why the other methods fail so badly.
Exactly. So failure mode number one, trying to distill from weaker instruction following LLMs that are just using in-context learning.
You'd think that would work, right? Giving it good examples.
We would, but the performance just drops off a cliff. And the reason is those models are just mimicking the format. They'll copy the phrase, let's think step by step, but the actual logical fidelity, the coherence, just degrades really, really fast.
So they're copying the syntax, but they don't get the semantics of the actual reasoning behavior.
Precisely. And the second failure, which I think is even more surprising, was trying to fine-tune on human annotated long code traces.
Wait, so using clean, correct reasoning written by humans also fails?
It fails to teach the general skill. The human solutions are great for solving that specific problem, that local step, but they don't reliably encode the right distribution of behaviors. The model needs to learn the abstract process of long horizon reasoning.
That's wild. So even perfectly logical human thought is too noisy. Or maybe too straightforward to teach a model the necessary tricks for stability.
That's takeaway one right there. Robust long-chain learning needs these structured examples that encode a very specific distribution of behaviors. It's not about copying tokens, it's learning at a much deeper architectural level.
The structural topology.
The structural topology.
Okay, let's unpack this. If imitation and human demonstration both fail, the learning signal has to be in the relationship between the steps. And that's the mystery this whole molecular structure idea tries to solve.
Right. They formalized it. They took a long code trace and mapped it as a behavior-directed graph. The nodes are the logical steps, sure, but the edges, the transitions between them, are annotated with the behavior type.
Deep reasoning, self-reflection.
Exactly. Deep reasoning, which they labeled D, self-reflection R, self-exploration E, and then just normal operation N. The focus shifts from what the model said to how that step connects to what came before.
And the chemical analogy just makes so much sense here. Let's start with deep reasoning. The covalent bond. Why is that the bone of the structure?
Because it defines that primary chain. It's the strong logical dependency where step A is the absolute justification for step B. It's your core argument. You break one of those covalent-like bonds, and everything that comes after it is destabilized.
Got it. Okay, so then we have self-reflection, the hydrogen bond. If deep reasoning builds the chain, what is reflection doing?
It's giving it stability. It drives this crucial process of folding. I mean, a linear chain of 100 steps is going to drift into nonsense eventually.
Right.
Self-reflection creates these long-range corrective links. For example, step 100 might circle all the way back to test or revise a premise you established way back at step 10. That's how it maintains internal consistency.
And they had some pretty striking data on that folding function, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. They found that 81.72% of reflection steps reconnected to a semantic cluster that was already formed.
Wow.
So that's just, hard proof that it's not just local correction. It's a global stabilizer. It's literally forcing the sequence to fold into a stable, consistent shape, just like hydrogen bonds stabilize a protein.
That's a huge insight.
And then finally, you have self-exploration, the van der Waals forces. These are your transient, low-commitment moves, because in complex problems, you can't just go in a straight line.
Right, you have to explore dead ends sometimes.
Right.
This is the model saying, hang on, what if I tried this other thing over here?
Exactly. It supports those abductive and inductive leaps. These bonds form weak, temporary bridges between distant semantic clusters, letting ideas drift and combine before a stronger bond, like deep reasoning, locks in a path.
And they could measure this.
They could. They showed these exploration steps had much larger step-to-step distances. We're talking an average trajectory length of 5.32 in the 3D TSNE projection. So they really are jumping across the conceptual map.
That visual is so powerful. So these three bonds, in a specific arrangement, define high-quality long code T.
Okay, so how did they actually prove this structure exists, that it's not just a nice analogy?
Well, they analyzed the behavior transition distribution. So, the probability of going from a deep reasoning step to a self-reflection step, for example. They did this across traces from multiple top-tier models, DeepSeek R1, OpenAI OSS, QWQ. And the results were, incredibly compelling. Across all these different tasks, the Pearson correlations for these structural distributions were over 0.9.
A correlation over 0.9 across three totally different models. That's not random.
No, it means this is a robust, recoverable, fundamental topology for how to reason well over long distances. It's a universal pattern.
And this is where it gets really mind-bending, right? The part about what the model is actually learning.
Yes, because they confirmed that the model is learning the underlying structure, not just the surface keywords we associate with it. So when we see an LLM say, wait, let's reflect on this, or alternatively, that's just a marker for a much deeper mechanism that's firing.
It's just a surface marker. Their sparse autoencoder analysis showed SFT carves out dedicated latent features for those discourse keywords, but the real proof was the transfer test.
It's the one where they mess with the words.
Exactly. They trained models where they replaced keywords with synonyms, or even trained models with no keywords at all, but they preserved the underlying behaviors. And those models achieved comparable performance.
Wow.
As long as the integrity of that behavior graph, the D, R, and E transitions was kept, the model worked. So that's takeaway 2. LLMs internalize the transition graph, not the lexical cues.
That's a huge deal for anyone building training data. It means we should stop obsessing over prompt engineering the exact words and start engineering the behavioral distribution of the data.
And they connect all this back to the transformer itself with this great physics analogy, attention energy.
Okay, break that down for me. We know attention weight measures how much the model focuses on one token when generating the next. How does the Boltzmann distribution get involved?
They basically define the negative logit as attention energy. So lower energy means a higher attention weight. It means a stronger, more preferred connection or bond between two logical steps.
So it's like the model is trying to find the lowest energy state for its reasoning.
Precisely. And when they mapped their 3 bond types onto this energy hierarchy, the structure held perfectly. Deep reasoning had the highest bond energy, the most stable state. Reflection was in the middle. And exploration had the weakest bond energy.
And this was consistent across models.
Consistent across all of them. It strongly supports the idea that the attention mechanism itself is biased toward finding these stable, low-energy, deep reasoning paths. It's actively seeking the most stable molecular structure for its answer.
That's just a profoundly elegant connection. It's like the model is running a physics simulation in its own latent space to find the most logical fold.
It reframes the whole process as guided structural optimization.
Okay, so moving on, we have to talk about semantic isomers. We've established the stable structure exists. But what happens if you try to jam 2 different but still high-quality structures together.
This is where it gets dangerous. Semantic isomers are basically two different reasoning paths that both solve the same problem. They visit similar conceptual areas, but their underlying behavioral distribution, their molecular shape, is different.
And structural compatibility is everything.
It's everything. This is takeaway 2, but expanded. They first looked at how these bonds help a model solve a problem, how they promote faster entropy convergence.
Right, they compared human reasoning to the strong R1 model.
And human reasoning is kind of plotting,
Well,
a steady, uniform information gain. But the R1 model shows this accelerating informativeness and this pattern they call metacognitive oscillation.
that sounds cool. What is it?
It's this rapid switching between high entropy, broad exploration, and low entropy, focused validation through self-reflection. It's that dynamic DRE dance that finds the effective solution.
So if you combine two models that use slightly different dances, you get chaos.
You get structural chaos. That's the core of their conflict experiment. They took two highly correlated structures, like R equals 0.9, from two great teachers, DeepSeek R1 and OpenAI OSS. You'd think combining two great recipes would make an even better one.
But it didn't.
Not even close. The resulting model just failed to converge. It fluctuated wildly. Its internal stability, its self-correlation couldn't get above 0.8, and performance just tanked.
So that's takeaway 3. Mixing even high-quality reasoning traces can be toxic if their molecular shapes don't align.
It's a massive warning for anyone curating datasets. You have to think beyond just correctness and start thinking about structural compatibility.
Okay, so if direct distillation is expensive and mixing data is toxic, how do we get these stable structures into a model? That brings us to their solution, Mole-Syn.
Right, Mole-Syn or molecular synthesis. It's their framework designed to solve this cost and compatibility problem. It's really clever. It doesn't copy the teacher's output.
What does it do then?
It estimates the ideal behavior transition graph, that optimal logical topology from a strong teacher, and then it transfers only that behavioral structure to a cheaper instruction LLM by synthesizing new trajectories.
So you're not transferring the finished building, you're transferring the blueprint.
That's the perfect analogy, and the results are phenomenal. Data generated by Mole-Syn gets performance almost identical to full distillation from a model like QWQ, but at a fraction of the cost. That's takeaway 4. It proves the structure is the primary thing.
And it sets the model up for future learning too, right?
Yeah, models initialized with these Mole-Syn structures show way better and more sustained performance gains in reinforcement learning. The stable structure is a robust foundation you can build on.
Let's quickly break down the specific function of each bond in shaping that logical search space. This really drives the analogy home.
They quantified it using semantic space volume. So deep reasoning is the densing function. It builds the logical backbone and shrinks the search space. They found the volume of the smallest covering ball in semantic space decreased by 22%. It forces the argument to become compact.
It focuses the model on the essential steps.
Exactly. Then self-reflection is the stabilizing function. It folds the chain to test consistency, which reduces the semantic space volume even further, from 35.2 down to 31.2. The model is settling into its optimal folded state.
And self-exploration does the opposite, but it's just as necessary.
It's the expanding function. It temporarily broadens the search to help the model escape local minima. They showed the exploration behavior space actually expanded from around 24 to over 29.
So takeaway 5 is that this whole topology guides the search by balancing these densing, stabilizing, and expanding forces.
Yes, it's a guided search for a low-energy solution.
This whole paper is just an incredible look under the hood, a roadmap for synthetic data. But finally, let's talk about the real-world security implication here, how this could be used to protect a private model from being cloned.
Yeah, this analysis explains why structural disruption works as a defense. That's takeaway 6. If the valuable IP is the reasoning structure, then breaking that structure is how you protect it.
How do you break it?
With things we already do, like summarization or reasoning compression. They found that if you compress the reasoning trace too much,
So if you distill from that heavily compressed output,
you break the bond arrangement. If the token reduction goes beyond about 45%, the behavioral transition distribution shifts. And that causes a measurable drop in accuracy for any model trying to clone it. The distillation is just much less effective.
you're changing the molecular shape of the output, creating a gap between what an outside observer sees and the internal functional reasoning the teacher model actually performed.
Security through structural integrity failure. It's a fascinating side effect.
It really is.
Mhm.
This study just fundamentally changes how we should be thinking about reasoning in LLMs. It's not a sequence, it's not even a tree, it's this complex, self-organizing molecular topology.
And structural integrity dictates the final capability. It moves the entire conversation from just token-level similarity to graph-level fidelity.
It's an absolutely essential read. So to leave everyone with a final thought, if reasoning quality depends on the model finding this specific low-energy folding path, what would it take to build a model that can change its reasoning structure on the fly?
Right. To solve a completely novel problem, not by relying on a pre-learned structure, but by dynamically transitioning to a whole new molecular shape during inference.
That's something for you to mull over on your own.